Mango tree swaying like an old witness. Only if we start honestly, she said. Kelly grinned. That's the only way I know. He reached for her hand, and she didn't pull away. 2 weeks later, a small wedding took place at the Foundation's garden, simple, intimate, without the trappings of status. Mrs. Okonkwo cried softly through the vows. Belinda's father beamed like a man witnessing a miracle. The city's gossip pages ran one last headline. Against all odds, the love story Abuja tried to stop. But this time, there were no insults in the comments, only hearts and prayers. When Kelly kissed Belinda under the mango blossoms, the sky broke open with sunlight, as if Abuja itself had decided, finally, to smile differently. The garden still smelled of rain and flowers when the last guests left. Belinda stood barefoot on the damp grass, holding her bouquet loosely as laughter drifted away into the night. Fairy lights glowed softly through the branches, their golden reflections dancing on her wedding dress. Kelly came up behind her, his cream suit jacket draped over one arm, his tie loosened. Still can't believe it? She smiled, turning to him. It feels unreal. Like a dream you don't want to wake up from. He reached for her hand. Then we won't wake up. Not yet. The way he looked at her made the whole city fade. For a brief moment, Abuja was theirs alone, a soft, forgiving dream of lights, trees, and promises. A home of their own. They moved into a modest bungalow on the outskirts of Gwarinpa, a quiet street lined with jacaranda trees. It wasn't one of Kelly's family properties. It wasn't grand or guarded, but that was exactly why he chose it. No gates between us and the world, he said when they first arrived. No walls except the ones we build with love. Belinda laughed, shaking her head. You sound like a poet. He winked. Maybe you're the poem. The first weeks were sweet and strange, learning each other's habits, bumping into each other in the tiny kitchen, arguing about who left the fan on, and making up before bed. For all the storms behind them, life had finally slowed to a rhythm that felt human. Yet peace, as always, attracted its own storms. It started quietly. Kelly's business associates began calling again, cautious at first, testing the water. One afternoon, an email arrived from an old board member inviting him to rejoin a project. Maybe they've accepted you, Belinda said, hopeful. Kelly frowned at the screen. Or maybe they want to see if I'll crawl back. Then don't, she said softly. You don't owe anyone your apology for loving me. He smiled, but his eyes lingered on the email. Maybe not. But I owe my employees stability. The company's collapse hurt more people than me. He clicked reply. The next few weeks saw him return to long hours, meetings, and business trips to Lagos. Belinda missed him, but she understood. She busied herself transforming their small home into something beautiful, painting walls, tending the garden, helping her mother expand the shop with funds Kelly quietly provided. Still, loneliness crept in through the silence of late nights. The city outside their gate buzzed, but their home sometimes felt too quiet. Trouble arrived one hot afternoon, wrapped in a designer dress and dark sunglasses. Belinda was watering the small flower bed when a black Lexus rolled up. The door opened, and Tracy stepped out. Belinda froze, watering can halfway to the ground. Tracy smiled, cold, sharp. You've done well for yourself. Belinda straightened. What do you want, Tracy? Relax, Tracy said, strolling closer. I'm not here to fight. I just came to see the woman who broke Abuja's favorite son. Belinda crossed her arms. He's doing fine. Oh, I know. But you see, Kelly is back in business with some old friends. Men who have long memories. They think he's distracted. They think you're the reason. And she leaned closer, lowering her voice. I might just agree. Belinda's pulse quickened. Whatever you're planning, Tracy, please stop. Tracy smirked. Oh, sweet girl, I don't need to plan. The city takes care of its own gossip. I'm just here to remind you, love doesn't make you untouchable. Then, without another word, she turned and got back into her car. The Lexus purred away, leaving the smell of exhaust and warning behind. When Kelly returned that night, Belinda didn't mention Tracy's visit. He was tired, distracted, and carrying a briefcase full of contracts. How was Lagos? She asked as she served dinner. Stressful. They're talking about restructuring the company. Some investors want to merge, others want me out entirely. You'll figure it out, she said, touching his arm. You always do. He smiled tiredly. I just wish I could make everyone happy. Belinda gave a small laugh. That's impossible, love. Just make yourself happy, and me. He leaned over and kissed her forehead. That's the plan. But later, when she fell asleep beside him, he lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how many people he had disappointed just to find peace. A month later, a journalist from Abuja Today reached out to him for an interview, a story about love, resilience, and rebuilding. Kelly hesitated. What if it just stirs things again? Then stir them, Belinda said. Let them see the truth. The interview took place in their small living room. Kelly and Belinda sat side by side on their modest sofa, their hands intertwined. The journalist asked questions, some gentle, some sharp. Do you think love can bridge class differences? Would you do it again, knowing the cost? Kelly looked at Belinda and smiled. Yes, he said simply. Every single time. The article went viral within hours. People shared it with captions like, True love still exists and Abuja's most beautiful redemption story. But not everyone was happy. 3 nights later, Kelly's car was vandalized outside the foundation office, its windshield smashed, the words, Stay in your class, sprayed across the hood in red paint. Belinda found him standing beside it, fists clenched. Who did this? She whispered. I don't know, he said, jaw tight. But it won't stop me. He filed a report, though he knew it wouldn't change much. Abuja's power played behind curtains, too many shadows, too few faces. Still, the message was clear, forgiveness had limits, and some circles would never open again. Months passed. Slowly, life began to settle again. Kelly's company found new investors, people who believed in his integrity more than his pedigree. Belinda opened a small boutique with her mother's help, selling Ankara designs and jewelry. She named it Dove and Thread, after the pendant Kelly had given her. They laughed more now. They fought too, but always made up before sunrise. Love, they learned, was not about surviving storms, it was about growing roots strong enough to face the next one. One evening, they sat in the garden outside their home, watching the city lights blink in the distance. Belinda rested her head on his shoulder. Do you ever miss the old life? Kelly thought for a long time. Sometimes. But then I look at you, and I remember what it cost me, and what it gave me. She smiled. And what did it give you? He turned to her, eyes soft. A home that feels like peace. Months later, the foundation held its 10th anniversary gala. Kelly and Belinda attended together, arm in arm. Tracy was there too, dressed in silver, her expression unreadable. When their eyes met across the room, something passed between them, not rivalry, not bitterness, but quiet acceptance. As the night went on, Kelly took the microphone to make a short speech. I've learned, he said, that love isn't about where you're from, or what you have. It's about who stands beside you when everything else falls away. He looked at Belinda. She stood beside me. Applause filled the hall. Cameras flashed. For once, the headlines that followed carried no scandal, only grace. Outside, under the Abuja night sky, Belinda and Kelly walked to their car. The city lights shimmered, forgiving at last. She whispered, "We made it." He smiled, wrapping his arm around her. "No," he said softly, "we're still making it." And with that, they drove off into the warm glow of the city that had once tried to break them, now watching them simply live. The gala night lingered in Kelly's memory like a perfect photograph, golden, glowing, untouchable. He had stood on that stage with Belinda's proud eyes fixed on him, applause rising like a tide. For a moment, the city that once mocked them seemed to celebrate instead. But peace, as he had learned, rarely announces its end before leaving. A growing distance. Weeks after the gala, life in their quiet Guarimpa home began to stretch thin. Kelly's company was booming again, new investors, a merger, international attention. He left early, came home late, his phone glued to his ear. Belinda watched the change quietly. At first, she told herself it was temporary, that hard work built their dreams. But by the third week, she began waking up to cold sheets and unanswered texts. One night, when he returned well past midnight, she met him at the door. "Kelly," she said softly, "you're never here anymore." He dropped his keys on the counter, eyes tired. "I'm building us a future, Belinda. You know that. I don't need a future if it means losing you now." He sighed. "Please, not tonight. I've had meetings all day." Her voice trembled. "And I've had silence all day." They stared at each other, exhaustion standing between them like a wall neither could climb. Tracy reappeared like perfume, subtle at first, then unavoidable. The new merger involved her father's firm, they were partners now by necessity. Kelly met her in polished boardroom surrounded by glass walls and cold air conditioning. She was different, calmer, more measured, as though the city's storms had tempered her too. "Congratulations," she said during their first meeting, a professional smile in place. "Seems your gamble paid off." "Seems so," Kelly replied evenly. She leaned back, eyes sharp. "Don't worry, I'm not here to start trouble. We're just business now." But business, he soon learned, could be intimate in its own way, long hours, shared strategies, quiet dinners after meetings. And though he never crossed the line, Belinda could feel the distance growing like a shadow she couldn't name. Belinda's boutique, Dove and Thread, had become a local success. Her Ankara designs caught attention online, and clients began arriving from across the city. She loved her work, the rhythm of sewing machines, the laughter of women who found joy in her small shop. But one afternoon, a customer whispered, "You're Mrs. Okonkwo, right? The one who married up?" Belinda smiled politely. "I married who I love." The woman laughed softly. "Careful, my dear. Love doesn't pay rent in Abuja." When she went home that evening, she found Kelly on a call, pacing, voice sharp. "Yes, Tracy, I'll send the files tonight," he said before noticing Belinda watching. Her chest tightened, though she said nothing. That night, she lay awake, listening to the rain. For the first time since the wedding, she wondered whether love was enough to survive the gravity of ambition. A week later, a new headline spread through social media. Kelly Okonkwo seen dining late with ex-fiancé Tracy Adeyemi, business or rekindled romance? Belinda saw it on her phone at the boutique. Her fingers trembled, the image blurring, Kelly and Tracy at a restaurant table, laughing. She called him immediately. He didn't pick up. When he came home that evening, she was waiting. "Where were you?" she asked quietly. "At dinner." "A business dinner?" "With her?" "Yes." He hesitated. "But Belinda, it wasn't what it looked like." Her voice rose. "Then what was it, Kelly? Another secret meeting you forgot to mention?" He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "You don't trust me anymore. Because you stopped letting me." The silence that followed was sharp. Finally, he said, "You think I'd betray you after everything we've been through?" "I think you're forgetting what we went through," she said, tears forming. "And that's worse." He turned away. "I'm tired, Belinda." "So am I," she whispered. The gossip didn't stop. Every time Kelly appeared at an event alone, the blog speculated. Every photo with Tracy reignited old fires. Belinda started avoiding her phone, her boutique, even the foundation gala invitations. Her heart felt heavy, her laughter rarer. One night, she visited her parents in Cato. Her father listened quietly as she spoke, his eyes patient and kind. "My daughter," he said, "you married a man, not a miracle. Men stumble, but love is the hand that helps them stand again." She nodded but didn't answer. At work, Kelly faced his own storm. The merger that had revived his company was turning into a trap, contracts rewritten, influence slipping from his hands. Tracy's father began pressuring him to sell shares. "You're too emotional, Kelly," the older man said coolly. "Business needs distance." Kelly realized, too late, that the deal had been designed to box him out. He confronted Tracy in her office. "You knew this was coming," he said, voice low. She looked up from her laptop. "It's just business, Kelly." "No," he said, stepping closer. "It's revenge." Tracy smiled faintly. "Maybe it's justice." He slammed the door and walked out. Outside, the Abuja sky was dark and heavy with rain. By month's end, Kelly's company was stripped of control. Headlines screamed again. "Business icon loses empire amid power shift." He came home that evening, drenched and broken. Belinda was sitting at the table, sewing quietly. Without a word, he sat across from her, elbows on his knees, face buried in his hands. She said nothing. She only rose, walked around the table, and placed her hand on his shoulder. For the first time in months, he wept, quietly, helplessly. And for the first time since their wedding, she held him without speaking. The following weeks were slow. Kelly stopped going to meetings. He stayed home, helping Belinda in the boutique. He learned how to press fabric, pack orders, even sew simple stitches. Customers would smile at the sight of the tall man behind the counter. "Mr. Belinda," one joked, and Kelly laughed for the first time in weeks. In the quiet rhythm of her shop, something began to heal. One evening, as the sun bled gold across the sky, he looked at her and said, "You were right." She smiled gently. "About what?" "That love doesn't pay rent in Abuja," he said. "But it buys peace, and I was foolish enough to trade it away." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "Then buy it back, every day." Months later, a new opportunity arrived. The foundation decided to expand nationwide, and Kelly was invited to lead the project. It wasn't wealth or fame this time, but purpose. Belinda stood beside him at the launch event, proud. Reporters asked about his comeback story, but he only said, "I didn't come back. I came home." That night, under Abuja's bright city lights, they drove home in silence, fingers interlocked. When they reached their gate, Belinda turned to him. "Do you ever think about how it all started?" He smiled. "A lost wallet. A bitter medicine. A miracle." She laughed softly. "And after everything." He finished her sentence. "We're still standing." She leaned closer, whispering, "Then let's never fall again." And with the city humming around them, they kissed, not like lovers rebelling against the world, but like survivors who had finally made peace with it. The applause from the foundation launch still echoed in Belinda's mind days later. It had been a victory, not one of wealth or power, but of peace. They had come full circle, from scandal to respect, from isolation to belonging. But as with all things in Abuja, peace did not stay still for long. The sudden storm. It began with a phone call one gray morning. Belinda was arranging new dresses at Dove and Thread when her phone rang, the hospital number. Mrs. Okonkwo. Yes, she said, heart skipping. This is Dr. Musa from City General. Your husband was admitted after collapsing during a field visit. He's stable but needs observation. For a moment, the boutique blurred around her. Collapsed? Yes, madam. Please come quickly. By the time she reached the hospital, the clouds had opened. Abuja rain fell in heavy silver sheets as she ran through the corridor, her shoes squeaking against the floor. Kelly lay on the bed, pale but conscious. Electrodes dotted his chest. Belinda, he said weakly, trying to smile. I'm fine. Just a little exhaustion. She gripped his hand tightly. You scared me. He squeezed back faintly. Guess I needed a reminder that I'm human. Dr. Musa entered, glasses fogged from humidity. Your husband needs rest. His blood pressure is dangerously high. If he keeps working this hard, we'll see him again, and next time, it might not be this simple. Belinda's throat tightened. He'll rest, she said firmly. I'll make sure of it. Kelly rolled his eyes slightly. You're starting to sound like my doctor. She glared at him, tears forming. And you're starting to sound like your father. That silenced him. They returned home 2 days later. Belinda transformed the living room into a small recovery corner, soft cushions, herbal tea, everything he needed. Kelly tried to work from his laptop, but she shut it and sat on it until he laughed. In those slow days, they rediscovered small joys, morning walks, evening talks, shared meals. But beneath the laughter, she noticed something change in him. He smiled often but slept little. His thoughts seemed far away, like he was holding onto something he hadn't told her. One night, she woke up to find him sitting outside under the mango tree, staring into the dark. Couldn't sleep, she asked softly. He didn't look at her. I keep thinking, what if this is my second chance? What if I've been given time for a reason? You have, she said, sitting beside him. To live. With me. He smiled faintly. Maybe also to forgive. Forgive who? He didn't answer. But she knew. 2 weeks later, Kelly asked Belinda to drive him to his parents' estate. Chief Okonkwo hadn't spoken to him since the company collapse. When they arrived, the old man was sitting under the veranda, listening to radio news. He looked up, surprised. Kelly. Papa. The silence between them was thick, years condensed into a single breath. Belinda stepped back, letting them speak alone. Kelly took a deep breath. I came to thank you. For raising me to fight. I just wish I had learned sooner when to stop fighting. Chief Okonkwo's lips pressed into a thin line. You look thinner. Kelly chuckled softly. Comes with humility. The old man's expression softened. I thought you'd resent me. I did, Kelly admitted. But I realized something. You taught me how to win, Mama taught me why. I forgot her lesson for a while. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Chief Okonkwo stood, his voice trembling slightly. Sit down, my son. Let's eat. It wasn't an apology. But it was peace. One late afternoon, as Belinda closed the boutique, Tracy appeared at the door. She looked different, simple clothes, no makeup, eyes tired. Tracy? Belinda said cautiously. I came to apologize, Tracy said softly. To both of you. Belinda folded her arms. For what exactly? For everything. For thinking that love was a competition I could win with status. I lost too much trying to prove a point. Belinda studied her face, no malice, no arrogance, just truth. People grow, Belinda said finally. Tracy smiled faintly. You know, you're stronger than anyone gives you credit for. And you? I'm learning to start over, Tracy said. No headlines, no boardrooms, just life. Belinda hesitated, then extended a hand. Tracy took it. It wasn't friendship yet. But it was forgiveness, and that was heavier than gold. Months passed peacefully, until the news came. Belinda had been waiting for Kelly to return from a conference in Lagos when her phone rang. It was the hospital again. Mrs. Okonkwo, said Dr. Musa, his voice tight. Your husband was in a road accident. Please come immediately. Her heart stopped. By the time she reached the hospital, the waiting area was full of whispers. When Dr. Musa came out, his face said it all. I'm sorry, ma'am. The injuries were too severe. We tried everything. The world spun. Belinda didn't scream. She didn't faint. She just stood there, holding her purse like it anchored her to existence. The funeral was quiet, private. Abuja's elite came in designer black, neighbors brought food and silent prayers. Belinda didn't cry that day. Not even when they lowered the coffin. It was only that night, when everyone had gone, that she broke, kneeling by their bed, pressing her face into his pillow. For days, she drifted like a ghost. Her boutique closed, her phone unanswered. But then, one morning, she found the pendant, the little silver dove Kelly had given her long ago. On its back was engraved a new word she had never noticed before. Still. Still breathing. Still standing. Still his. She smiled through tears. You knew, didn't you? Months later, the Abuja Foundation hosted its first memorial event in Kelly's name. Belinda stood at the podium, the same one where he'd once spoken. Her voice was calm, strong. Kelly taught us that love is not a weakness, it's a discipline. It's what we build when everything else falls. The crowd rose in applause. Mrs. Okonkwo, now older, wiped her eyes in the front row. Even Chief Okonkwo stood and clapped. Outside, the wind carried the scent of mango blossoms through the city. Belinda looked up at the sky, a deep blue alive with light. You're still here, she whispered. Just, different. The sunset over Abuja shimmered like liquid fire, pouring across rooftops and glass towers. From her office window, Belinda watched the city pulse, loud, alive, insistent. 2 years had passed since Kelly's death. Time had reshaped her grief, sanding its edges but never erasing its weight. She had built a name for herself. Dove and Thread was now a national brand, her designs worn by diplomats, actresses, and first ladies. And yet, in the quiet moments between meetings, she still caught herself turning to speak to him, to share a joke, a worry, a triumph, before remembering he was gone. New heights. Belinda's boutique had grown into a 3-story fashion house in Maitama. The new space buzzed with activity, tailors at machines, stylists preparing fittings, assistants carrying trays of jewelry. On the top floor, Belinda stood before a mirror, adjusting the collar of a silk blouse for her upcoming magazine cover shoot. Madam, said her assistant Amaka with a grin, you look like money and peace had a child. Belinda laughed softly. Thank you, Amaka. Let's just hope peace pays the bills this month. But beneath the laughter was the quiet ache of someone who knew success could be lonelier than failure. A proposal of power. That afternoon, Belinda attended a private investors' luncheon at the Hilton. Abuja's elite filled the room, old politicians, CEOs, women with diamonds heavy as truth. A tall man in his mid-40s approached her table. Mrs. Okonkwo, he said, extending a hand. I'm Mr. Tundayola, managing partner at Sapphire Holdings. I've been following your work. Belinda smiled politely. That's kind of you. I believe Dove and Thread could scale beyond Nigeria, he continued. Our firm is expanding into international fashion markets. I want to partner with you, new funding, new audience, new legacy. The word legacy made her pause. Tun's gaze was confident, his tone persuasive. Think about it. You'd be global within a year. She nodded slowly. I'll think about it. But something in his smile, charming, practiced, a little too assured, unsettled her. That evening, Belinda visited the foundation. It had become her sanctuary, still carrying Kelly's name, still serving the poor. Mrs. Okonkwo greeted her warmly. My daughter, she said, hugging her. The board has been so proud of you. Thank you, Mama. Belinda said softly. They walked through the courtyard where Kelly's memorial plaque shimmered under the lights. Belinda stopped, fingers tracing the inscription. Love builds where pride destroys. Mrs. Okonkwo noticed her silence. He would be proud of you. Belinda smiled faintly. I hope I'm still making the kind of choices he would. A week later, Tund Iola visited her office with papers and promises. He spoke of expansion, London Fashion Week, Paris showcases, global fame. You'd be the first Nigerian designer to hold dual headquarters in Abuja and Milan, he said. Sapphire Holdings can make it happen. Belinda hesitated. What's the catch? He leaned forward. Minor control rights. We'll handle the finances, marketing, logistics. You keep the face, the brand remains yours publicly. Her stomach tightened. So, I'd own the name, but not the decisions? He smiled. You'd be too busy being a global icon to worry about decisions. She looked him dead in the eye. Mr. Iola, I buried one man I loved because of ambition. I won't bury myself for the same reason. He laughed, though there was steel in his voice. Think it over. I'm not used to hearing no. Days later, rumors began to spread, whispers that Dove and Thread had rejected a lucrative deal, that Belinda was difficult, emotional, hard to manage. Business slowed. 2 long-time investors withdrew. Her accountant frowned over the numbers. Madam, if this continues, you'll need to cut staff. Belinda sighed. Let's hold off a bit. We'll figure something out. At home, she sat under the mango tree, tracing the little dove pendant around her neck. Kelly, she whispered, how did you stay so steady when the world wanted to shake you? The wind stirred the leaves gently, and for a moment, she imagined she could hear his voice. By remembering who I am, not what they call me. One morning, as Belinda was reviewing fabric samples, a young woman entered the boutique nervously. Good morning, Ma, she said. My name is Halima. I used to work for Sapphire Holdings. Belinda looked up. Oh. Halima nodded. I thought you should know, Mr. Iola's company has been targeting independent businesses. They take control quietly and bleed them out. They call it strategic absorption. Belinda frowned. Why are you telling me this? Because my sister worked for one of their partner brands in Lagos, Halima said softly. She lost everything. You deserve to be warned. Belinda leaned back, shaken. Thank you, Halima. Truly. A week later, news broke that Sapphire Holdings had filed a proposal to acquire a controlling stake in Dove and Thread, using forged consent documents. Belinda's lawyer called, voice urgent. Madam, they're trying to buy your company out from under you. We have 48 hours to respond before it's finalized. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Then, like fire catching air, resolve filled her. No one takes what I built from love, she said. Not again. The next morning, she marched into Sapphire Holdings' office tower, flanked by her lawyer and a few loyal staff. Reporters swarmed the entrance, shouting questions. In the boardroom, Tund looked up from his chair, smirking. Mrs. Okonkwo. To what do I owe the honor? To your arrogance, she said coldly, tossing a folder onto the table. Those signatures you forged? The Foundation's legal department traced them. And you're about to learn that I don't need a husband or a father's name to fight back. He leaned back, still smiling. You wouldn't risk a public scene. She stepped closer. I'd risk everything for the truth. When she left the building an hour later, her shoulders were straight, her lawyer's grin wide. By evening, the news hit the networks. Designer Belinda Okonkwo exposes corporate fraud, refuses buyout. The same blogs that once whispered scandal now shouted admiration. A month later, the foundation hosted its annual gala, this time celebrating women of integrity. Belinda received the Kelly Okonkwo Humanitarian Award, named in his honor. When she stepped on stage, she felt the weight of everything: loss, love, victory, and light. She looked into the crowd, at faces that had doubted her, at friends who had lifted her. Her voice trembled as she spoke. Success without integrity is just noise. And love is not about who stays beside you when things are easy, but who leaves you with strength when they're gone. Closing scene. Later that night, Belinda returned home. The house was quiet. The moonlight fell softly through the windows. She walked to the garden and sat under the mango tree, the wind cool against her skin. From her purse, she pulled out a new design sketch, her next collection. At the corner of the page, she wrote one word in elegant cursive. Still. She looked up at the stars and whispered, "We made it, Kelly." Again. A soft wind brushed her cheek, gentle as a kiss. And the city, wide and golden, seemed to hum with approval. The first light of dawn crept through the blinds of Belinda's bedroom, soft and gold. She stirred, blinking against the glow, the quiet hum of Abuja beyond her windows. For a long moment, she simply lay there, letting the silence breathe around her. Kelly had been gone 3 years now. And yet, she could still hear him in the way the wind moved through the mango leaves, in the rhythm of her own heartbeat when the city fell quiet. The pain no longer cut sharp, it hummed low and steady, like a scar that had learned to live with touch. Belinda's mornings had taken on ritual precision, a jog through the leafy streets of Maitama, coffee brewed with too much milk, and a few moments sitting by the balcony, sketchbook in hand. But this morning, there was something new waiting on her table, a formal invitation printed in gold. African Creative Women Summit, keynote speaker, Mrs. Belinda Okonkwo. She smiled softly. Kelly would have teased her for pretending to be nervous. Imagine that, she murmured, running her finger along the embossed letters. Me. A keynote speaker. She set the card down, took a deep breath, and began her day. The past returned softly. Later that afternoon, while checking fabrics at her Garki showroom, she heard a familiar voice behind her. Mrs. Okonkwo. She turned, and froze. Standing by the door was Tracy Adeyemi, dressed simply in jeans and a white shirt, her once glamorous aura replaced by quiet confidence. "Tracy," Belinda said, surprised but smiling. "I haven't seen you in over a year." "I know," Tracy said, returning the smile. "I heard about the summit. You've really built something incredible, Belinda." "Thank you. How are you?" Tracy exhaled. "Different. I started a small initiative for young women in business. Turns out helping others is less exhausting than fighting ghosts." Belinda laughed softly. "You sound like Kelly." For a brief moment, they stood in silence, two women who had once been enemies, now bound by shared growth. "Belinda," Tracy said quietly, "I came because I have something for you." She reached into her bag and pulled out an old envelope. "I found this when my father's company closed its Abuja office. It's addressed to you, in Kelly's handwriting." Belinda's breath caught. "Where did you?" "It was in a box marked personal correspondence," Tracy said. "I think he left it there before the merger." "I thought, you should have it." Belinda took the envelope with trembling hands. Thank you. Tracy nodded once, then turned to leave. Take care of yourself, Belinda. The letter. Belinda sat in her office long after Tracy left, staring at the envelope. It was worn, slightly yellowed, the ink fading at the edges. She opened it carefully. My Belinda. If you're reading this, it means I didn't get the chance to say everything I wanted to. I've always been better with words on paper than in person. You gave me more than love, you gave me meaning. You reminded me that strength isn't noise, it's endurance. I don't know what the world will give you after I'm gone, but I know what I want you to remember. You are not half of us, you are whole by yourself. Keep building, keep believing, and when the world grows loud again, remember that silence is sometimes how love speaks back. Still yours, always. Kelly. The words blurred as tears filled her eyes. She pressed the letter to her chest, her lips trembling. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to cry, not out of grief, but gratitude. The summit. The day of the summit arrived beneath a clear Abuja sky. The hall buzzed with women in bright dresses and confident laughter. Cameras flashed, banners read. Women who build, voices of change. When Belinda stepped onto the stage, applause filled the air. She smiled, heart steady. Good morning, she began, her voice clear. 3 years ago, I stood in front of a crowd like this for the first time. I was terrified, not of failure, but of being seen. A ripple of soft laughter ran through the room. I built my business from pain, she continued, and I learned that sometimes, loss is the seed of legacy. Every woman here has fought a private war. But look at us, still standing, still shining, still building. By the time she finished, the hall was silent, then erupted in applause. After the event, young designers lined up to greet her. Ma'am, one said, tears in her eyes, you made me believe I could start again after my husband left me. Belinda smiled, placing a hand on the woman's shoulder. Then promise me, start again, but this time, for you. A few days later, Belinda received an email from Dr. Nathaniel Mensah, a Ghanaian academic who had attended the summit. Dear Mrs. Okonkwo. Your words moved me deeply. I'm organizing a Pan-African creative leadership initiative in Accra and would be honored if you join our board. Belinda hesitated. Travel meant leaving Abuja, her business, and the home she had built from memory. But then she remembered Kelly's words, keep building. She replied, yes. I'd be honored. Accra was warm, colorful, and kind. The air smelled of salt and hibiscus. Belinda found comfort in its rhythm, less demanding than Abuja, more human somehow. Dr. Mensah turned out to be thoughtful, soft-spoken, and deeply passionate about empowering African creators. They spent long hours discussing programs, sharing ideas over coffee. One evening, after a long meeting, he said quietly, you speak about him often, Kelly. She smiled wistfully. He's part of everything I do. He nodded. And you've become what love looks like after loss. The words stayed with her long after he left that night. Months passed. The project thrived. Belinda began traveling between Accra and Abuja, dividing her heart between the city that made her and the one that healed her. In Accra, she found laughter again, quiet, cautious, but real. In Abuja, she found purpose, steady and strong. One evening, under the mango tree, she received a message from Dr. Mensah. Heading to Abuja next week. Would love to visit the foundation, and your famous tree. She smiled, typing back, it's waiting for you. When he arrived, the city was glowing with sunset. They walked through the foundation courtyard, past Kelly's plaque. Dr. Mensah paused to read it, then said softly, he must have been extraordinary. Belinda nodded. He was. They sat under the mango tree as twilight deepened. Fireflies drifted between the leaves. Belinda, he said after a while, do you ever think of starting over? She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not a replacement, but a continuation. A companion for the road ahead. Maybe, she said quietly. But not to erase what was, to honor it. He smiled. Then I'll wait for whatever answer time gives. Weeks later, as she prepared for another trip to Accra, Belinda visited Kelly's grave one last time before leaving. The sky was overcast, the air soft. She placed a single white lily on the stone. Thank you, she whispered. For giving me a life that keeps growing. She stood there a moment longer, eyes closed, then walked away, not from him, but toward herself. The wind picked up, scattering mango leaves across the path. And for the first time since he left, she didn't look back. The dawn came slowly to Abuja, soft, golden, and alive with the hum of beginnings. Belinda woke to the sound of birds in the garden and the faint rustle of mango leaves through her window. For the first time in years, she didn't wake with ache or urgency. Only peace. Her journey had been long, through loss, love, rebuilding, and rediscovery. Now, she was something more than she had ever imagined, whole. It had been 6 months since she last saw Dr. Nathaniel Mensah. Their work on the Creative Leadership Project had blossomed into a continent-wide initiative. When he called that morning, his tone was soft, steady. Belinda, he said, I'm back in Abuja. She smiled faintly, heart skipping in that familiar, uncertain way. Welcome home, Doctor. Home, he repeated thoughtfully. Can I see you? There was no hesitation this time. Yes. Come by the foundation this evening. The foundation at 10. By sunset, the Abuja Foundation courtyard was alive with celebration. Balloons and banners fluttered under the orange sky, 10 years of impact, building hope across Africa. Belinda moved gracefully among guests, shaking hands, laughing with old colleagues, and hugging students the foundation had sponsored through school. When she stepped on stage, the crowd fell silent. 10 years ago, she began, this foundation was just a dream, built on love, loss, and the stubborn belief that one act of kindness can rewrite a life. She paused, looking toward Kelly's bronze plaque beneath the mango tree. Tonight isn't about me. It's about what he taught us, that giving is not charity. It's continuity. It's the way love stays when people go. Applause rippled through the courtyard, and for a moment, she felt the wind shift, soft, familiar, like a quiet whisper of approval. After the event, when the lights dimmed and the crowd dispersed, Dr. Mensah found her by the tree. He looked older, his beard touched with gray, but his eyes were still kind. You spoke beautifully, he said. She smiled. I meant every word. They sat on the bench together, the same one she used to share with Kelly. Fireflies blinked between the branches. I didn't want to disturb what this place means to you, he said softly. But I also don't want to spend my life standing at the edges of your memory. Belinda turned to him, thoughtful. You're not. You're helping me build beyond it. He nodded slowly. Then let's keep building. Together. For a long moment, neither spoke. The applause had barely faded when Belinda looked down at the silver dove-shaped ring sparkling in the light. It wasn't just a proposal. It was a question from fate itself, could she love again, after everything? Dr. Nathaniel Mensah knelt before her on the gala stage, his eyes calm, patient, unafraid of her silence. Around them, the guests at the Accra, Abuja Creative Exchange Gala watched in stunned admiration. The music had stopped, and all that remained was the quiet rhythm of her heartbeat. Belinda's hands trembled slightly as she whispered, Nathaniel. He smiled, eyes never leaving hers. You don't have to answer tonight, he said softly, his voice barely above the sound of the evening breeze. Just know that I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking you to begin again, with me. Something inside her, a part she'd buried long ago, stirred gently, like dawn stretching after years of twilight. She nodded, a tear glimmering at the corner of her eye. Then let's begin. The crowd erupted in applause. Cameras flashed, but in that moment, she saw no one but him. Later that night, they sat together on the balcony of her suite overlooking the lights of Abuja. The city shimmered below, a constellation of possibility. "I wasn't expecting this," she said softly, turning the ring in her hand. Nathaniel leaned back, his smile quiet and sincere. "Neither was I. But some things happen when we stop trying to fix the past and start living the present." She looked at him, his calm, grounded presence. So different from Kelly's restless fire, yet familiar in how safe it felt. "You're not afraid of the shadows I carry?" she asked. He shook his head. "I'm afraid of a world where you stop shining because of them." She smiled, her heart swelling with both gratitude and fear. The return to Abuja. The following week, Nathaniel flew down from Accra to meet Belinda's foundation team. He wanted to understand her world, not just her heart. They arrived together at the foundation headquarters in Maitama. Staff members whispered excitedly, watching their graceful chemistry. At the entrance stood Mama Ebel, the foundation's oldest volunteer, and the closest thing Belinda had to a mother figure since her own had passed. She smiled wide, wrapping Belinda in a hug. "My daughter, you glow differently today." Belinda laughed. "It's just the Abuja heat, Mama." Nathaniel greeted her respectfully. "Good afternoon, ma'am." "It's an honor." Mama Ebel's eyes twinkled. "Ah, so this is the one who wants to steal our daughter's heart again, eh?" Belinda's cheeks flushed. Nathaniel only smiled. "Not steal, Mama, protect." The older woman nodded approvingly. "Then you have my blessing." Their days became a gentle rhythm: work, laughter, long walks through the foundation garden, and quiet dinners under the mango tree. Nathaniel often joined her at the sewing studio, watching her sketch designs for her. The applause had barely faded when Belinda looked down at the silver dove-shaped ring sparkling in the light. It wasn't just a proposal. It was a question from fate itself: could she love again, after everything? Dr. Nathaniel Mensah knelt before her on the gala stage, his eyes calm, patient, unafraid of her silence. Around them, the guests at the Accra, Abuja Creative Exchange Gala watched in stunned admiration. The music had stopped, and all that remained was the quiet rhythm of her heartbeat. Belinda's hands trembled slightly as she whispered, "Nathaniel." He smiled, eyes never leaving hers. "You don't have to answer tonight," he said softly, his voice barely above the sound of the evening breeze. "Just know that I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking you to begin again, with me." Something inside her, a part she'd buried long ago, stirred gently, like dawn stretching after years of twilight. She nodded, a tear glimmering at the corner of her eye. "Then let's begin." The crowd erupted in applause. Cameras flashed, but in that moment, she saw no one but him. Later that night, they sat together on the balcony of her suite overlooking the lights of Abuja. The city shimmered below, a constellation of possibility. "I wasn't expecting this," she said softly, turning the ring in her hand. Nathaniel leaned back, his smile quiet and sincere. "Neither was I. But some things happen when we stop trying to fix the past and start living the present." She looked at him, his calm, grounded presence. So different from Kelly's restless fire, yet familiar in how safe it felt. "You're not afraid of the shadows I carry?" she asked. He shook his head. "I'm afraid of a world where you stop shining because of them." She smiled, her heart swelling with both gratitude and fear. The return to Abuja. The following week, Nathaniel flew down from Accra to meet Belinda's foundation team. He wanted to understand her world, not just her heart. They arrived together at the foundation headquarters in Maitama. Staff members whispered excitedly, watching their graceful chemistry. At the entrance stood Mama Ebel, the foundation's oldest volunteer, and the closest thing Belinda had to a mother figure since her own had passed. She smiled wide, wrapping Belinda in a hug. "My daughter, you glow differently today." Belinda laughed. "It's just the Abuja heat, Mama." Nathaniel greeted her respectfully. "Good afternoon, ma'am." "It's an honor." Mama Ebel's eyes twinkled. "Ah, so this is the one who wants to steal our daughter's heart again, eh?" Belinda's cheeks flushed. Nathaniel only smiled. "Not steal, Mama, protect." The older woman nodded approvingly. "Then you have my blessing." Their days became a gentle rhythm: work, laughter, long walks through the foundation garden, and quiet dinners under the mango tree. Nathaniel often joined her at the sewing studio, watching her sketch designs for her next collection. He loved the focus in her eyes, the way her fingers traced fabric as if she were weaving memory into art. One evening, as the power flickered and candlelight filled the room, he said, "You know, every time I see you create, I think this is what healing looks like." Belinda paused, looking up from her sketch. "And what does it look like to you?" He smiled. "It looks like grace stitched into beauty." Her heart softened. For the first time in years, she wasn't haunted by loss, she was inspired by presence. Weeks later, Nathaniel invited her to meet his sister and nieces who lived in Asokoro. The visit was filled with warmth. His family welcomed her like a missing piece they'd been waiting for. His sister, Auntie Lydia, served pepper soup and laughed as she watched them tease each other over chess. After dinner, as the kids ran outside to play, Lydia pulled Belinda aside. "My brother," she said gently, "has always given more than he received. I'm glad he's found someone who understands love doesn't mean losing yourself." Belinda smiled softly. "That's what I learned the hard way." Lydia nodded. "Then maybe you both were meant to find peace, not perfection." One quiet evening, they returned to the foundation courtyard after everyone had gone home. The air was heavy with the scent of night-blooming flowers. Belinda leaned against the mango tree, the same one that had witnessed so much of her journey. "Nathaniel," she said quietly, "I've spent so long building a life around memories. Sometimes I wonder if there's space left for something new." He took her hands gently. "Then let's build something beside it, not over it." She looked into his eyes, steady, kind, certain. And for the first time, she didn't feel like she was betraying the past. She felt like she was honoring it by continuing to live. He kissed her forehead softly, and the world seemed to exhale. By dawn, Abuja shimmered with light. Belinda woke in her apartment overlooking the city, the dove ring glinting on her finger. In the mirror, she saw not the woman who had lost, but the woman who had risen and chosen love again. She whispered to her reflection, still rising. And somewhere in the soft hum of morning, she could almost hear Kelly's voice, not in sorrow, but in blessing. "You kept your promise." The London sky was grey and endless when Belinda stepped off the plane, her heart caught between continents. It had been 3 months since Nathaniel's proposal. 3 months of planning, long-distance calls, and that sweet, steady rhythm of a love learning to stretch across time zones. She pulled her coat tighter as the chill brushed her skin, so different from the warmth of Abuja. The driver waiting by the terminal smiled politely. "Mrs. Mensah?" he asked. She smiled. "Just Belinda, please." As the car glided through London streets, she watched the city unfurl, sleek buildings, wet pavements, people rushing through the drizzle. She'd come here to launch her European fashion showcase, still rising, the collection. But deep down, she knew this trip wasn't just about work. It was about seeing if love could survive in the real world. When she reached the hotel, her phone buzzed, a message from Nathaniel. "Nathaniel, made it home safely? I can't sleep. Missing you already. Belinda, landed just now. London's freezing without you. Nathaniel, then I guess I'll have to bring the sun with me when I come." She smiled, her heart light. But beneath the sweetness, there was a whisper of worry, because love, even when pure, always carried its shadows. 2 days later, Belinda stood backstage at the London Design Museum. Her team bustled around, adjusting lights, smoothing fabric, aligning models. The runway shimmered under soft gold light, her story woven into every piece. When the show began, time melted. The audience watched in awe as models moved gracefully, each wearing designs named after chapters of her life. Loss, resilience, still, rising, and finally, forever. When the final model took her bow, the crowd rose in applause, loud, unrestrained, endless. Tears welled in Belinda's eyes as she whispered to herself, "We did it, Kelly. We really did it." Her phone buzzed again, a message from Nathaniel. "Nathaniel, you were magnificent, even from across the ocean. The world will remember tonight." She smiled through her tears. "And you'll be here soon," she whispered to the screen. But days turned into weeks. Calls became shorter. Messages less frequent. Nathaniel was caught up with expansion work for the foundation in Accra. Belinda was consumed by press tours, interviews, and meetings with investors. One night, while sipping tea on her hotel balcony, she called him. He answered on the third ring, sounding tired. "Belinda? You sound exhausted," she said gently. "I am," he admitted. "The board's been difficult. But I'll be with you soon." "You always say that," she murmured. Silence stretched between them, not angry, just heavy. "Belinda," he said softly, "this distance isn't a wall. It's just a season." She nodded, even though he couldn't see it. "Then let's promise, no matter how long, we don't lose each other in the noise." He exhaled. "That's a promise." A week later, at an after-party in Chelsea, Belinda found herself surrounded by praise, journalists, investors, celebrities. One man in particular stood out, Ethan Clarke, a British-Nigerian art curator with a smooth accent and an even smoother charm. "Belinda Okonkwo," he said with a smile, "the woman who stitched her soul into silk." She laughed politely. "I suppose that's one way to describe insomnia." He grinned. "Genius rarely sleeps." They spoke for hours about art, Africa, love, and legacy. He understood her world without needing translation, and when the night ended, he said, "You're rewriting what it means to be timeless." For the first time, Belinda felt seen not as the woman who endured, but as the woman who inspired. Still, as she rode back to the hotel, her heart whispered one name, Nathaniel. 2 days later, she woke to a knock on her door. When she opened it, Nathaniel stood there, travel-worn, holding flowers and the most relieved smile she'd ever seen. "I told you I'd bring the sun," he said. She threw her arms around him. The world fell away. That night, they walked along the Thames, hand in hand, the city's lights shimmering in the water. "I saw your interview," he said softly. "You spoke like someone who's finally free." "I am," she whispered. "Because I stopped living in the past." He kissed her then, slow, certain, real. But love, like light, always casts a shadow. One evening, while Nathaniel met investors, Belinda attended a gallery dinner, hosted by Ethan Clarke. Cameras flashed, wine flowed, conversations blurred. When photos of them laughing together hit social media, headlines erupted. Designer Belinda Okonkwo seen with London curator Ethan Clarke, trouble in paradise? By morning, Nathaniel had seen them all. When she entered their suite, his phone was on the table, screen glowing with the article. He looked up slowly. Was it true? Her heart dropped. It was dinner, Nathaniel. Work. Nothing more. He exhaled sharply. You could have told me. I didn't think it mattered. It matters, he said, his voice calm but heavy. Not because I doubt you. but because I need to know we're still fighting for this. Tears burned her eyes. Then don't let rumors fight harder than we do. He walked to her, took her hands, and said quietly, Belinda, love isn't just what we feel when it's easy. It's what we choose when it's not. That night, they talked until dawn, about fear, trust, and the weight of public life. By morning, something new had formed between them, fragile but real. They knew love wasn't about avoiding storms anymore. It was about standing together in the rain. Back in Abuja weeks later, Nathaniel surprised her with a quiet evening under the mango tree. A table was set with candles, jazz music played softly in the background. He took her hand. We can't always control what the world sees, but we can choose what we build. She smiled, her heart steady. Then let's build something unshakable. And as the stars bloomed overhead, they danced, slow, barefoot, laughter spilling into the night like light through silk. For once, there was no past to escape, no future to fear. Only the shape of love, imperfect, enduring, alive. The evening rain drummed softly on the windows of the mansion. Abuja was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes before great change. Belinda stood in front of the mirror, holding a glass of wine. The dove-shaped engagement ring shimmered faintly under the lamplight. She was weeks away from marrying the man who had brought light back into her life. And yet, somewhere deep inside her chest, there was a flutter, not doubt, but fear. Love was easy to feel. Forever was harder to live. The next morning, the mansion filled with laughter and perfume as the wedding planners arrived, led by Catherine Blake, a fiery British-Nigerian event designer known for turning emotions into art. Catherine spread color palettes across the glass table. Gold, ivory, and emerald, she said, tapping her tablet. It reflects your story, rebirth, elegance, and grace. Nathaniel smiled. And cost? Catherine grinned. Let's just say love doesn't come cheap. Belinda laughed, shaking her head. If love depended on budgets, we'd all be broke. The room erupted in laughter, but beneath the joy, Belinda caught Nathaniel's eyes. His smile was warm, but his mind seemed elsewhere. Later that afternoon, Nathaniel's mother arrived from Accra. Madame Abina Mensah was a dignified woman, tall, elegant, wrapped in deep green kent. Her smile was polite, but her eyes measured everything. Belinda, she said, her tone smooth but firm, you are even more beautiful than Nathaniel described. Thank you, Ma, Belinda replied with a respectful smile. As they sat in the lounge, Abina's gaze fell on a photo of Kelly, framed beside the foundation's award. She tilted her head slightly. You still keep his photo here? Belinda's breath caught. Yes, Ma. He was an important part of my life. The silence stretched. Finally, Abina said, the dead deserve respect, but the living deserve peace. Belinda looked down. I'm trying to find both. That night, Nathaniel found her sitting in the courtyard under the mango tree. She didn't mean to offend you, he said gently. I know, Belinda murmured. She's just protective. I get it. Nathaniel sat beside her. She wants me to be happy. So do you. You both just speak different languages. Belinda smiled faintly. One speaks tradition. The other speaks healing. He nodded. And both matter. He reached out, brushing a curl from her face. Belinda, I don't want this wedding to divide us. I want it to deepen us. She leaned against him, exhaling. Then let's promise not to let love turn into performance. He kissed her forehead. Always. 2 days later, Belinda received a call from Ethan Clark, the London curator she had met months earlier. Belinda, his voice came smooth through the line. I'll be in Abuja for an art collaboration. I'd love to feature your new designs. She hesitated. That's kind of you, Ethan, but I'm getting married soon. He chuckled softly. All the more reason to celebrate your evolution. You're not just someone's fiancé, you're an artist. His words stayed with her. That evening, Nathaniel found her in the studio, lost in thought. What's on your mind? He asked. She turned to him. Sometimes I feel like everyone wants a version of me, the designer, the fiancé, the public figure, but not the real me. Nathaniel walked closer. Then who's the real you, Belinda? Her voice broke slightly. Still learning. He pulled her into his arms. Then we'll learn together. A week later, tabloids struck again, this time showing a photo of Ethan and Belinda at a gallery meeting. The headline screamed. The designer's double life, is love in jeopardy before the wedding? It hit Abuja like wildfire. When Nathaniel arrived at the mansion, security guards tried to hide the newspapers. But he'd already seen the photos. He walked straight to her office. Belinda looked up, already weary. You saw it. I did, he said quietly. Tell me. She slid the tablet toward him. It was business, Nathaniel. Just business. I believe you, he said, but his tone carried something unspoken. What's that supposed to mean? She asked. He sighed. I trust you, Belinda. I just don't trust the world around you. She stared at him. Then don't let the world make you forget who I am. For days, they barely spoke. Rehearsals for the wedding went on, smiles for the photographers, laughter for the guests, but beneath it all, tension grew like a storm cloud waiting to break. Finally, on the eve of their wedding, Belinda stood on the balcony, staring out at the lights of Abuja. Nathaniel joined her quietly. You look like a woman deciding whether to run. She smiled sadly. Maybe I'm deciding whether to stay. He turned to her. Then tell me what you need. I need to know this marriage won't silence me, she said. That I can still be Belinda, not someone's wife on display. He stepped closer, voice low. Then promise me the same, that I can be Nathaniel, not the man trying to live up to Kelly's ghost. Their eyes met, hurt, love, truth, all colliding. Then she said softly, tomorrow, we marry, not to escape our past, but to write something new. He smiled faintly. Then let's write it with grace. Sunlight spilled across the city. The courtyard glittered with gold and ivory flowers. Guests gathered beneath the mango tree. As Belinda stood before the mirror in her wedding gown, pure silk, delicate beadwork, she whispered, still rising. Outside, Nathaniel waited at the altar, his heart pounding like the first time he saw her. And when she walked toward him, grace, fire, forgiveness in every step, everyone felt it. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a resurrection. The morning sun rose slowly over Abuja, gilding the city in gold. The air was alive with anticipation, the kind that makes hearts race and hands tremble. At the mansion, music drifted softly through the air. Staff moved with quiet precision, placing ivory flowers and lighting lanterns along the walkway. Everything was ready. Almost everything. Belinda stood before the mirror, radiant in a gown that shimmered like sunlight over water. The silk clung to her form, every bead catching light like dew. Mama Ebel, her late mother's oldest friend, adjusted the veil gently. My daughter, she whispered, you've carried storms and still bloomed. Today, you rise for love, not survival. Belinda smiled, her eyes misty. Thank you, Mama. Outside, laughter echoed. Friends, journalists, and dignitaries arrived. The courtyard glowed under the mango tree, now draped in gold and white. And at the end of the aisle, Nathaniel stood, tall, graceful, his navy suit catching the sun. When their eyes met, time stopped. The officiant smiled warmly as Belinda walked down the aisle, her father figure, Chief Okonkwo's old friend, guiding her. Soft jazz filled the air. Nathaniel's eyes shimmered. "You look like the reason dawn was invented," he whispered when she reached him. She laughed through her tears. The officiant spoke of love that heals, of promises not to possess but to honor. When it came time for the vows, Belinda took Nathaniel's hands, voice steady but trembling. "I've known love that broke me. But you've shown me love that rebuilds. You've taught me that strength isn't found in silence, but in being seen." Nathaniel smiled faintly, squeezing her hands. "And you've taught me that peace isn't the absence of storms, it's the courage to dance through them." The audience sighed softly. "By the power vested in me," the officiant declared, "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Nathaniel lifted her veil, and kissed her. Applause erupted. But even through the joy, Belinda felt something shift. A whisper. A presence. Belinda's assistant approached quietly. "Madam, there's something you should see." He handed her a phone. On the screen, a message from an unknown number. "Congratulations. But some ghosts don't rest easily." Attached was a photo, a blurred image of Ethan Clark standing at the airport in Abuja. Her pulse quickened. "Who sent this?" she asked. "We don't know, ma'am. It came through your public page." Belinda locked the phone and forced a smile. Not today, she thought. Not now. The dance. That evening, under the mango tree, the newlyweds danced slowly beneath the stars. Guests clapped, cameras flashed, music floated like perfume. Nathaniel leaned close. "You're shaking," he murmured. "Just nerves," she said, smiling. "I can't believe it's real." He kissed her hand. "It's real. And it's ours." But as he spun her, her gaze caught something beyond the crowd, a tall figure standing near the garden gate, half hidden by shadows. For a moment, she thought her heart had imagined it. Ethan. Their eyes met, brief, haunting, before he turned and disappeared into the night. Later that night, when the guests had gone and the music had faded, Belinda sat alone on the balcony, her gown shimmering in the moonlight. Nathaniel stepped out quietly, jacket gone, shirt open at the collar. "Why aren't you asleep, Mrs. Mensah?" he teased gently. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "There's something I need to tell you," she said. He leaned on the railing beside her. "Tell me." She hesitated. "Before we met, I almost fell for someone else. He wasn't right for me, but he believed in my work. He made me feel seen when I thought no one did." Nathaniel said nothing, just listened. "And today," she whispered, "I think he came to the wedding." He exhaled slowly, eyes on the horizon. "Ethan Clark?" She turned to him in surprise. "You know? I know the world you live in, Belinda. It follows you, even when you try to start over." He looked at her, steady, calm. "Did you love him?" "No," she said, tears slipping down her cheeks. "But for a moment, I thought I could." Nathaniel nodded, voice soft. "Then we move forward, with truth, not perfection." He took her hand. "That's what marriage means." Dawn broke over Abuja like a promise renewed. Belinda stood barefoot in the courtyard, the hem of her gown brushing the dew-covered grass. The mango tree swayed gently above her, sunlight filtering through the leaves. Nathaniel joined her, holding 2 cups of tea. She looked at him and smiled faintly. Still rising. He raised his cup. Together this time. And as they sipped, side by side beneath the same tree where their story began, the world felt quiet again, imperfect, but real.